Well, after last week, I kind of wish I was living in George Orwell's 1984 out there in Eurasia. If you guys are familiar with that reference, what I'm saying is I would love to memory hole much of what happened last week. Get rid of it, toss it away, and pretend it never happened. That 10-point teaser we had, I knew it too. Every time you do that and you go, man, this looks way too good. Like, let me just get field goal wins from teams that are 10, 11, 10-point favorites, 10.5-point favorites. That's all we need. Or what was it? 13. I'm sorry. 13, 12.5. That's all we need. Niners, no problem Thursday night. All right. Chiefs, cool. Clobbered the Bears. And then the Cowboys get the brakes beat off of them by the Joshua Dobbs-led Cardinals. Don't even talk to me about Tennessee. You know what, though? I will say, I think a bad read by me on that one because, well, not even the Browns defense, this is what I'll say, is outstanding. We're going to talk about that in that game against Baltimore today. We got picks for all 16 games. We're going to pick our spots. We hit some last week. Don't get me wrong, but some of those big shots, some of our favorites just did not work out. And by did not work out, I mean they did not work out. But it's week 4. We got plenty of time, and we're back with it. I'm Dave Lockram for The Odd Shopper. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and let's talk some football for week 4, 16 games. Last week before the byes. Let's get into it. Like I said, memory hole week 4. Let's have some amnesia here. Fortunately, we've got another week of football, and we're going to talk about that right now. First up on the docket this week, we got the Detroit Lions on the road. Traveling to Lambeau Thursday night football against the Packers. They're 1.5-point favorites. Originally, this opened Packers minus 1.5. It's 46-point total. I got to tell you guys, Jordan Love has gotten some wins, okay? He's gotten some wins. But at the same time, he has the lowest adjusted passer rating in the league right now. You can make the argument, sure. Aaron Jones, they're getting the cavalry returns, the reinforcements. Here comes Aaron Jones. Here comes Christian Watson. I get all of that. You seen the injuries to this team right now, though? The offensive line, a couple on defense. I know the Lions got a few injuries, too, up front. But let me tell you something. I think Jordan Love could be in for a long day. And people are pretty stoked on them right now, coming back from a 17-point deficit against the Saints, who lost Derek Carr midway through that game. Jameis Winston came in, attempted 18 passes with little success. They came back and got that win. They got that victory. They were beaten by Desmond Ridder and the Atlanta Falcons prior to that by 1 point, but they lost. And then they got an easy win against the Bears in week 1. But as we've seen, the Bears are as broken as a team can get. I got to tell you, if the Bears or if the Lions are healthy enough up front on offense, that offensive line is fantastic. They're going to protect Jared Goff, no doubt about it. Great weapons on that team. But defensively, coming off a 7-sack game last time out, handling the Atlanta Falcons. We were heavy on the Lions last week, so we took that one. We'll take it all day. But I think looking at this game, if you're looking to either side, I know they're on the road, but give me the Lions money line right now, minus 118. FanDuel's where you'll find the best number on that. It's minus 125, minus 127 in other spots, minus 118 on the money line. I think this defensive line, this pass rush, can get to Jordan Love, force him into bad decisions. Clearly, by far, undisputably, the toughest matchup that he's faced this season, and I think it's going to show on Thursday night. We just talked about the Falcons. Now you've got them traveling to London against the Jaguars, as they like to say, in their home away from home. The results haven't exactly proven much of that, though. Go back and look at some of these London games for the Jags. Just got shit on in a lot of them. But this is totally a different Jags team that we've seen before. I mean, last week's results might suggest otherwise, but I honestly do expect a bounce back here. I do. I mean, this Jags, outside of that embarrassing loss to Houston last week, it's much better than all the other ones that we've seen. Almost, I should say, all the other ones that we've seen in London. This pick is less about where they're playing and more about the matchup, right? Like, you look at the Lions last week, we said we think if they go up early, the Falcons are going to have a really tough time combating this team through the air. And that's exactly what happened. They struggled big time. If they can't run the ball and kind of control time of possession, they're going to get dominated. They had 44 rushing yards on 20 attempts. They lost 20-6. That game was never competitive. Now they face a Jags team that's allowing 84 rushing yards per game, 3.4 yards per attempt. I honestly just can't fathom And listen, I couldn't fathom the Cowboys losing to the Cardinals last week either. But I can't fathom this Jacksonville offense with Travis Etienne, with Calvin Ridley, with Christian Kirk, with Trevor Lawrence, all of these guys, Evan Ingram. I can't fathom them just stalling out entirely through the ground or through the air and on the ground. I've been saying since the beginning of the season that this Atlanta defense is much improved. And I believe they are, right? They haven't gotten slaughtered defensively, but unless they can control this game on the ground, unless they can control time of possession, they're going to be in for some long days. And I think the Jags avoid falling to 1-3 here. Both teams go 2-2 heading back to the States. Give me Jags -3 in this one. Commanders are getting 8 points, +8 against the Eagles at Lincoln Financial Field, 44-point total here. All right, let's have an honest discussion about this one, because I thought in the trenches yet last week, and we learned a lot after last week for sure, especially about Sam Howell. I'll tell you why. I thought that in the trenches, this Washington team could at least make it competitive, not get disgraced at home at that disgusting FedEx Field. I was there for an Eagles game last year, and might I say that not a lovely place. But no disrespect to Commanders fans, just to the stadium. All I know is this: Sam Howell has been sacked 19 times this season. That's 6 more than any other quarterback. Okay, 6 times in week 1, 4 times in week 2, 9 times last week against the Bills. Okay, listen to this. Been pressured 48 times. He's been sacked on 19 of those, 40% of the time. 1 touchdown under pressure, 4 interceptions, 48% completion rating. Now he has to face an Eagles defense that just obliterated the Buccaneers offensive line for 60 minutes. Did you see that push they had at the 1-yard line to create that safety? Jacob, you saw that, right? Did you see Jordan Davis taking a double team and throwing them back into each other, into the running back, and Morrow comes to that defensive line is nasty. That defense right now. Jalen Carter's a game wrecker. Jordan Davis is a monster, and these guys aren't even playing full-time snaps. So my question is, how does Sam Howell hold up? Maybe they make some changes, but they can't do what they did last year in week 9 or 10 when they beat the Eagles. They handed the Eagles their first loss in this same stadium at the Link, but they also ran the ball 49 times, controlled over ball for 40 plus minutes. They had the football of a 60-minute game. How does that work in this one? I have trouble seeing how that's going to be the case. Eagles run defense is giving up nothing on the ground, absolutely nothing on the ground. And, you know, they're number 1 in PFF's run defense grade. Take that for whatever it's worth, but they're allowing 3 yards per attempt, 48 rushing yards per game. And a lot of that is because teams are just abandoning the rush and they're forced to throw. And if that's the case, Sam Howell could have a tougher time, especially if he's under pressure, because it's been brutal for him through these first 3 weeks. I won't say it was a blind spot per se for me last week, but now I think we know that that is a real Achilles heel to Sam Howell. If he struggles this week, I'm not sure how he plays another week or continues to start into like week 6 or 7 or anything like that. So 8 points is a lot in the divisional game, but this looks lopsided to me, especially with the Eagles offensive line parting the Red Sea for DeAndre Swift. He has 216 yards before contact this year, and he's only essentially played 2 games. So, 8, or if you want to use this in a teaser piece, it's a great place to do it. Just stay away from the Cowboys and teaser pieces in any week until further notice, until we can recoup those losses. Dolphins are 3-point dogs to the Bills, 53.5-point total here. I could see this getting bet up north of 53.5. It's a big number for sure, but you look at these teams last year, playoffs. Remember how cold it was in Buffalo, and everyone, myself included, was like, man, Dolphins could really struggle in this cold weather game. Nope, soared north of 60 total points. Super competitive game. Also, late in the season, they played each other. Soared over 60 total points. The only game that didn't, you guys remember this. Remember week 3? It was like 700 degrees in Miami, and they have their stadium designed where the home team is nice and cozy under the shade. The road team gets blasted by the sun for 4 quarters, and this is a 1 p.m. game. The Buffalo Bills were dropping dead. Shouldn't use that terminology for the Bills. The Buffalo Bills were dropping like flies, okay, in that game, and it was a problem. They ran like 100 plays on offense. The game was 21-19. It was bad, though. They were clearly struggling, cramping up, like heat stroke style out there. This should be different in Buffalo. I think this game could absolutely go over. And Miami's looked dominant offensively. Let's not pretend that this is going to be 70 points or anything like that. But Waddle's expected back. The Bills have scored 37 and 38 points over their last 2 games. There's still a Buffalo minus 2.5 out there, too. If you're going to lay the points on Buffalo, get the 2.5. Don't take the 3. Get the 2.5. There's so much hype on the Dolphins right now that I think the sharp spot is probably taking Buffalo minus 2.5. But I also like the over here at 53.5 as well. Vikings minus 3.5. Hold on. The 0-3 Vikings, 3.5-point favorites against the 0-3 Carolina Panthers, 45-point total here. Panthers defense allowed 425 yards in week 3 to Seattle. So, we saw a couple games early on with the Carolina Panthers, and you're like, hey, this defense doesn't actually look that bad, right? But at the same time, you were going up against the Atlanta Falcons, you were going up against the New Orleans Saints, and then you go up against a good offense in Seattle, 425 yards. They coughed up a ton of points. But the offense didn't look bad, but they were led by Andy Dalton as well. Andy Dalton looked really good. We said in one of our videos later in the week on the DFS channel that Adam Thielen looked like this would be the guy that Dalton would lock onto, and he did. And Thielen revived. Actually, a little bit of a revenge spot here against the Vikings. But I would feel different about this game if Dalton was starting. But Bryce Young is no longer on the it's Wednesday, and he's already off the injury report. So if it was Dalton, I would love to hammer the over here at 45, and I think it would move up. But it's Bryce Young, or at least, some strange twist it isn't. He's healthy, so it should be Bryce Young. If we're assuming he's going to play, and he should, give me the Vikings at minus 3.5 here. Both minus 3, both 0-3 teams. But Bryce Young has not operated this offense well. I know they had that backdoor, not cover, but backdoor push touchdown late in the game on Monday night against the Saints. But this offense is stalled out so often. They can't get anything going for Miles Sanders. I know it's a bad Vikings defense, but this Vikings offense still has a boatload of weapons. I'll lay the 3.5 here, knowing that Bryce Young is expected back under center for the Panthers. Ravens, 2.5-point dogs against the Browns, 41-point total. Couple things here. One, I told you guys, I'll reevaluate, I'll swallow my words, and I'll take my lumps if Deshaun Watson comes out in week 3 and looks great. Outside of some totally boneheaded mistakes, he threw like a 30-yard pass backwards at one point in that game. But outside of that, he played pretty well. He made some great plays, some great throws against the pass funnel Titans defense. Derrick Henry on the other side, by the way, was just, where did he go? We'll get to them shortly. Looking at this, though, the Ravens are dealing with a lot of injuries. I think you could get a lot of these guys back. It looks like the offensive line should be healthy, which is huge for them. But this Browns defense has been dominant. I mean, pure domination from this Browns defense. Have you guys watched these games? Have you guys watched this Browns defense last week, the week before? Myles Garrett is playing on next level, like out of this world right now. This defense looks really, really good. And somehow the Baltimore Ravens every year just keep getting littered with injuries. So Browns are still minus 2.5 at home. I'm willing to change my tune from last week. I have no problem being wrong and reevaluating. If you're getting the Browns inside of 3, which we are, at 2.5 on BetMGM, I am going to take that and I'll lay the 2.5. And in a divisional spot with 2 good defenses, particularly this Browns defense, run defense, and through the air against the aerial attack, I'll take under 41 as well. Just mentioned to you guys too that BetMGM has the best odds over there for that game. They have the best odds for a lot of these games this week, but more than anything, you want to shop around on sportsbooks. That's the biggest thing, especially when they want to give you free money. And you're going to get a lot of good promos out there. You're going to get sportsbooks throwing money at you, especially ones like BetMGM who are they're looking up. They're going, yeah, FanDuel and DraftKings are all the way up here, and we're all the way down here. How do we get people over here? Because, hey, we're a good site. We're a very reputable sportsbook. Been around forever. How do we do it? Oh, wait. Let's say if they bet $10, we'll give them $200. That should work. And it should work because you're getting $200 by taking $10, using the link in the description and in the pin comment. I threw them both in there for you. Sign up. It takes 90 seconds to sign up and get everything through. Take $10, put it on that's all you need. Put it on whatever you want, anything. Win or lose, you got $200 coming back into your account the moment that bet settles. You can't beat that. As I say all the time to you guys, if someone came up to you anywhere in the world and offered you $200 for $10, the snap decision is yes, right? This type of ROI doesn't come around often. And sports betting, as we learned last week, it's really tough. You take the free money when they're throwing it at you. It's the best type of money to get. And right now at BetMGM, it's the best promo out there. You get 200 when you bet 10 on whatever the hell you want. My suggestion, put it on some longer odds. It makes it a whole lot more fun if you hit that bet, because if you don't, you got 200 in there anyway. So check it out. Link in the description and in the chat. Big money coming your way on BetMGM. You can use it for week 4 as well. Maybe use it for Thursday and get it for Sunday. Must be 21 years or older to gamble. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Thank you. All right, Steelers -3 against the Texans at 42-point total here. Yeah, all right. So here's the way I see this. There actually is a -2.5 out there. We backed the Texans last week because kind of why not, right? CJ Stroud has not thrown an interception. I think him and Herbert are like the two most pass attempts without an interception this season. We backed them and we liked them last week. To be fair, we liked them the week before and they didn't cover. But there are some good things that they're showing us right now. Here's the problem. I think they're going to get hyped up pretty heavy in a spot like this. And if I can get the -2.5 for the Steelers, that's a spot I don't mind going to, because this is by far one of my favorite games. Or sorry, by far not one of my favorite games. But I do think if there's ever a spot and you can get the Steelers inside of a field goal, I don't mind doing that. I really, really don't. Jacksonville was putrid last week. There were some super weird plays. Andrew Beck, running back, the big man touchdown, running that back on a muffed punt. When he channeled his inner Deshaun Jackson in that game at the Miracle of the Meadowlands 2 or 3 or whatever it was. They've had plenty there. I'd lay the 2.5 with the Steelers if you can get them there. Otherwise, I don't really want this. But if I can get them inside a field goal, I think that makes plenty of sense. It's -118 on FanDuel right now. I think that's a good spot. As far as the total goes, I don't know. We don't know what CJ Stroud's going to look like. Kenny Pickett looked better last game for sure. I think the run defense could be an issue for Houston, because if Pittsburgh can finally run the ball, that should make them, that put them in a better spot. And their defense is still strong enough to compete. Inside 3 points, I'll take it, but not a game I like. Bengals and Titans. Here's a really interesting one. I've seen a lot of talk out there saying, like, yeah, if you get the Titans at 3.5, take them. And I actually get that, because the overreaction to last week is going to be intense, especially going, okay, well, the Bengals got their first win on Monday Night Football. That's good. And the Tennessee Titans got blown out against the Cleveland Browns. Derrick Henry was nowhere to be seen. Ryan Tannehill threw for 13 yards in the second half. I mean, it's as bad as it gets. But at the same time, if you guys watched the same game I did on Monday, did Joe Burrow look good to you? I mean, it was great that he's finally getting Jamar Chase involved as much as possible, but he completed 53% of passes. He threw no touchdowns, 1 interception. He still doesn't look comfortable. And I think most would argue that, like, they need, yes, he's a tough dude, needed to play that game. You can't fall to 0-3. Teams that go to 0-3 are essentially shot. But he didn't look right. He didn't look confident. There were 3rd and 10s, 3rd and 9s, 3rd and 11s where he's throwing to the flat, where he's throwing like 4 or 5 yards into coverage. I didn't like it. So I get why people would like that Tennessee spot, but that number's not out there. And I'm not taking them at +2.5. If anything, 41.5, the under here is where I'd rather go. Tell me you couldn't see like a 21-17 game in either direction. Hell, a 17-14 game. You know what I mean? Those type of spots to me actually make sense. Tennessee's offense has been lifeless. To be fair, so has the Cincinnati offense. So until we see Joe Burrow step it up, if there's a spot that I'd look through here, it would actually be under 41.5 between the Bengals and the Titans. Rams, 1-point dogs against the Colts, 46.5-point total. Yeah, how about this? Rams and Stafford looked out of whack on Monday. Bengals almost got lucky as a result. That defense didn't look bad, though. Got some good pressure, forced them into some bad throws and everything, and got some sacks. So that's impressive on Cincinnati defense part. And they were able to shut the run down. Kyron Williams played 100% of snaps, by the way. Not a game I love. This is what I'd say on this. If I'm betting this, I would actually go Rams money line at slight plus money, plus 102 right now, only because I don't have a good read on either side. But I do feel like people are super high on the Colts right now. That was a weird game last week. Ravens were super banged up, really banged up. Bad weather game. Credit the Colts too, by the way. Zach Moss, 30 attempts. Gardner Minshew hanging in there. Comes in relief of Anthony Richardson in week 2 and then starts week 3 and plays well enough to get them the overtime win. But I still think that this is a spot where Sean McVay is a good enough coach now that Matthew Stafford isn't playing injured and now that they actually have a receiver with Cooper Kupp out and Puka Nacua. Because remember, last year they had nobody. It was like Ben Skoranek and Van Jefferson, and we've seen that he's got nothing. This is a spot where I'd say if you go anywhere, you go Rams money line plus 102, but mostly a pass for me. All right, Bucs and the Saints. So how about this? Bucs are 3.5-point dogs, 40.5-point total here. The last 3 times these teams faced each other, the scores were 17-16, 20-10, and 9-0. Alvin Kamara is going to be back for the Saints, but Derek Carr is almost certainly missing this game. They're labeling him week to week. The Bucs got gutted on the ground by Philly. We saw that. It was bad stuff. But this is a totally different spot. Like, that Philly offensive line is the best in the league when it comes to run blocking. And DeAndre Swift was amazing. They have so many weapons everywhere. The offense couldn't function against that Philly defensive front either, which is just terrifying. I look at this as a close, low-scoring game. That's what, to me, makes the most sense. You guys let me know in the comments. What are your thoughts on this game or any games for that matter? I read all the comments and trying to respond as well. But the Saints are 0-2-1 against the spread. They've gone under in all 3 games this season. And now you're looking at Jameis, who really has not been that good. I mean, Jameis has been far from impressive whenever we've seen him in these type of relief efforts. And then the Bucs are 2-1 against the spread so far. They've gone under in 2 of 3 games as well. So give me Bucs plus 3.5. There's still some 3.5s out there, guys. BetMGM specifically. I talked some on FanDuel and DraftKings earlier where we're getting our best odds. BetMGM plus 3.5 is the only spot I found the Bucs at that number. You're getting them outside a field goal. I really like that. And under 40.5 in this game. I could see a really low scoring, ugly game where this just stays close enough for the Bucs to get in under a field goal and cover. Here we go. Broncos minus 3.5, 46-point total. What do we do here? Could either of these teams be any more broken than they are right now? The Broncos just coughed up 70 points to the Dolphins, and the Bears are outright terrible in every facet of the game. They're already dealing with injuries, and now Jalen Johnson could be out for the Bears. Russell Wilson hasn't actually looked that bad, but this year the defense is falling apart when last year they kept them competitive in every game. These teams are awful. They're awful. If we're betting this game, you have to just take the Bears at 3.5. You have to. You're taking them outside. I know a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, man, but the Bears. Yeah, but what about the Broncos? What about the Broncos? If you gave me the Broncos minus 2.5, I would take that. I'd take that, yeah. If you give me the Bears plus 3.5, I'll take the Bears. And there are some 3.5s out there right now. They're home dogs against what is appeared to be an equally bad team and a defense that is completely collapsed. I'm leaning on the over too, but I want to wait to see until player props are released and take some individual spots in that overs instead of the over itself. But I'm going to take the Bears at plus 3.5 because you're getting them outside a field goal, and these teams are both terrible, and they've shown no life through the first 3 weeks of the season. Raiders plus 5.5 at the Chargers, 47.5-point total here. Brandon Staley, let me say this. The Kirk Cousins and company saved Brandon Staley's job last game. That 4th and 1 decision, fine. You want to make that call, even though I disagree with it, at your own 28 or whatever it was, fine. You can't run that play, all right? And this team just always manages to do that stuff. I also, if you guys have ever watched any of my videos, I don't like laying this many points on the Chargers ever. That's just the way it is. I like them as dogs. I don't like them when they're 5.5, 6, 7-point favorites. It generally doesn't work out. At least it feels that way. But this is also under the assumption that the Raiders get Garoppolo back. And they said that they're hopeful that he'll play. They're optimistic that he'll play. And if that's the case, divisional game, Chargers covering sizable spreads isn't something I'm particularly confident in. No Mike Williams. Austin Eckler, when talking about it on his podcast, said he's doing everything he can to get back, but he sounded not confident himself that he'd be back this week. And they have a bye week for week 5. So maybe they hold him out one more game and go to Joshua Kelly, who has stunk. So with that being the case, give me Raiders plus 5.5 here. I'm kind of leaning the over, but Raiders plus 5.5 because I just don't trust the Chargers at this number with the injuries that they've got on offense. Cardinals 14-point dogs against the Niners, 44.5-point total. Shout out to Joshua Dobbs. I'd be happy for him if they didn't steamroll the Cowboys. So no shout out to Joshua Dobbs. You know, they didn't even have his jersey in Arizona in any of their stores until Saturday. But in a way, I'm happy for the guy. I don't know, man. I just couldn't have waited another week for us. Just 1 week. Shit, man. That was crazy. But is it possible that some people might get ahead of themselves? Maybe. The books aren't. Minus 14 for the Niners. And quite frankly, I've seen a lot of comments over on our DFS channel because we do DFS, daily fantasy football breakdowns, like every day of the week. And we've already done 2 this week. People saying like, hey, you can't bet against the Cardinals right now. Cardinals are 3-0 against the spread this season. The last part is true. I do think you can bet against the Cardinals, though. They're coming off a massive emotional win. And now they have to play in San Francisco, where the 49ers have had extra rest coming off a Thursday night football game. I think this could be a bloodbath. Honestly, I do. Debo didn't practice, but Brandon Ayuk's back out there. And quite frankly, we saw what they did to the Giants, who are a better team than the Cardinals. We saw what they did without Brandon Ayuk. So if they have Ayuk back, they have George Kittle. You're going to have Christian McCaffrey, who's the best running back in the league, just absolutely dynamic player, and a smothering defense. Yes, if I'm betting this game, I don't know if I'm going to yet, but if I'm betting this game, because I'm definitely thinking about it, it would be Niners minus 14. Sure, you'd love the minus 13.5, but I think this could get ugly. And I think, Arizona, despite what Jonathan Gannon's done, and it's impressive, they have life way more than the Broncos or Bears do this season. If you follow me over on Twitter at Loughy_D, Loughy_D, by the way, you would have seen my thoughts on this Arizona team and the Bears and Broncos this past week. But they have some life. I just think that I think that flame may be extinguished in week 4 before, then do whatever you want in week 5 and moving forward. But it is a really tough spot. Niners minus 14. Patriots plus 6.5 at the Cowboys, 43-point total. You kind of have to be careful with these games when it comes to like the Cowboys because they were the talk of the town heading into week 3, weren't they? And then they were the talk of the town after week 3 for all of the wrong reasons. Usually there's a middle ground here. There is a middle ground here, obviously. Like the Cowboys aren't just some shitty team now. They're also not as good as they were made out to be over the first couple of weeks where they faced the Giants, steamrolled them in a weird game, and then faced Zach Wilson and the Jets. And come on, right? Now, don't get me wrong. They still clearly should have beat the Arizona Cardinals last week and not lost by 12 as 12-point favorites. All I'm saying is they're not as good as they were, and that's why we teased them down to 2.5. That they're not as good as they looked, and they're not as bad as they looked last week. The Patriots are 1-2. They're a good defense, and they're a pedestrian offense with not a ton of weapons, and they can't get the run game going. Ramondre Stevenson has been a ghost so far. They face some tough defenses as well. You face Philly and Jets defense, life isn't going to actually be easy for you, But both teams dealing with significant injuries on the offensive line as well. So instead of taking the spread here, I think under 43 is something I like, especially pay attention to these offensive lines, guys. We'll have more videos out later in the week on the Odd Shopper channel. So if you're subscribed, you'll get the notifications. I think under 43 right now makes the most sense given the banged up teams. And also looking at both of these defenses, even without Diggs on the Dallas side, I'm not sure this game is going to have an easy time flying over that number. The Chiefs are 9.5-point favorites against the Jets with a 41.5-point total. I wouldn't be surprised if this is Zach Wilson's last game as a starter for the Jets. I know, guys. Yeah, coaches say a lot of things, but I don't really care about any of these platitudes offered up to us by Robert Saleh recently. Like, you can't allow 15 points on defense, and in the fourth quarter, your quarterback has thrown for fewer yards than Keenan Allen, who has one attempt for 49 yards and a touchdown in the Chargers-Vikings game. That just can't happen. Oh, nice. Zach Wilson led them to a touchdown late in the game. Yeah, that was the only decent drive he had literally all game. It's a train wreck, and they're just wasting this defense away. They're wasting guys like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson away. Pull a guy off the couch and put him on this team right now. Zach Wilson's not the answer. And listen, I would have loved for Zach Wilson to be the answer. It would have been an awesome redemption story, being under the tutelage of Aaron Rodgers after he goes down with the Achilles in week 1 on September 11th at home with this massive, massive reception. And Zach Wilson leads this team to the playoffs. But that's not happening. That's not happening, okay? I think it's pretty clear right now that Zach Wilson is not the answer. This opened at 8.5. It's at 9.5 right now. I think it probably, if this moves through 10, I wouldn't be shocked. How do you back the Jets? How do you back the Jets at any point right now? I don't see how you can. And I don't see how things improve for them with Zach Wilson under center. If they do, I'm not even kidding. If they do this week against the Chiefs defense that has been suffocating opponents on the ground, through the air, with the pass rush, with Chris Jones back, if they do, I would be more surprised by that than the Arizona Cardinals beating the Dallas Cowboys. I'm not saying it can't happen, but given what we've seen over the first, second, and third week, Zach Wilson would need a miracle from the Lord above in order to turn things around against this Chiefs team. I don't care if they're playing at home, on the moon, on the road. It doesn't matter. No quarterback's been under pressure more than Zach Wilson this year. 51% of pressures on which he's completing 50 or 36% of his passes. The only bet here, if you're betting it, is Chiefs minus 9.5. Last up, Monday Night Football, and I'll have separate videos on Thursday night and Monday night for those two games. But Seahawks 1-point dogs at the Giants, 47-point total here. I don't have a good read, and we'll do more digging as the week goes on, and we'll get some good props in there for Monday. But I don't have a particularly good read on the Seahawks and the Giants right now, because the Giants are -1 at home. And, I'm not saying that's crazy at all, but I don't know if I'm looking to lay points on the Giants. Seattle has been kind of an up and down team so far. Outside of week 1, they've looked pretty good, though. I'm looking over on OddsShopper to see if there's any decent bets here. Oddshopper.com, by the way, where you can just see all of the best plus EV bets right in front of your face. It's a market-based approach. It's the best way to do things. If you don't want to listen to me and, you want to actually take a data-driven, market-based approach and see your money go up week over week, oddshopper.com is the way to do it. I threw the link in the description as well if you want to jump in on that. 70% off your first week or month. It's an awesome, awesome tool. Check it out for yourself even before you sign up. Just click the link and check it out. And if you like it, you're in. But we've got Seahawks. The best bet on this game right now, we have Seahawks under 9.5 points in the first quarter. For the Seahawks and Giants under 9.5 points in the first quarter. I get that, but I still think this is one of those games that you could see go over. Now, you could listen to the market-based approach, which is taking the best lines, and we have like a source of truth in essence. And then it's under that number, but only for specific sports books. You're shopping around, right? So each book, you're going to have better lines than others. But these defenses have both looked bad. Seattle's pass defense has looked bad. The Giants, they're getting pressure at times, and they make some decent stops at times, but I'm not buying into this quite yet after what we saw against Arizona, after what we saw against Dallas. Of course, a lot of that was their offense giving points away too. Against the Niners, sure, some tough matchups. You could see this game shoot out. Would not shock me. You could see this game shoot out. So my lean is over 47 right now, but I'm gonna look elsewhere, do a little bit more digging, and see what I come up with. If you guys have made it this far, appreciate you hanging out. As always, thanks for supporting the channel. Hit that thumbs up before you go subscribe. Remember, BetMGM, you bet 10, you got 200. Immediately. It's a beautiful thing. It's the best promo you're going to find, at least right now. So other stuff could pop up, and then it does. We'll tell you about it. But outside of that, bounce back. We'll put the work in. We'll have a good week. We'll catch you back here for week 5, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.